used to think monsters only lived in children's stories. But when I was 9, I realized that some monsters are real, and they might be closer than you think. That's how my story begins. My name is Lucas, and I'm here to tell you about the year that completely destroyed my childhood. It all started after my mother passed away. I don't remember much about that day, just the smell of funeral flowers and the sound of my father trying to hide his tears. A few months later, my dad brought a new woman into our lives. Her name was Carla, and she was going to become my stepmother. At first, Carla seemed like a beautiful dream. She would give us candy, play with us, and tell us she loved us like her own children. But there was something in her gaze that wasn't right. I felt that behind that smile, there was something terrifying, something I couldn't understand. A few weeks after her marriage to my dad, things started to change. My dad began working long hours, often staying away from home. As for Carla, she turned from that sweet woman into a strange person. She would yell at us for trivial reasons, forbid us from entering certain parts of the house, most notably the basement. "The basement is not for children," she would always say in a stern tone. But I felt like there was something bigger going on than just the basement. One night, I woke up to a strange sound. There were whispers coming from downstairs. I woke up immediately, feeling terror run through my body. I woke my sister Emma and said, "Did you hear that? The sound is coming from the basement." She looked at me fearfully and said, "We're not allowed to go down there. Carla will kill us." But I was determined. We took the key we had seen hanging in the kitchen and slowly opened the basement door. What we saw there would stay engraved in my memory forever. The walls were covered with strange symbols I didn't understand, but made me feel sick just looking at them. There was a large table in the middle of the room with burning candles and pictures of our family. My mother's picture was there, but her face had been violently crossed out, as if someone had tried to erase her from existence. As for my picture and Emma's, there were strange marks drawn on them with red ink. I felt scared, but before I could say anything, Carla appeared. She was standing at the basement entrance, smiling a crazy smile with her eyes gleaming strangely. She said in a terrifying voice, "I warned you, but you didn't listen. Now, you must know the truth." She started talking about my mother and how she had tried to keep her from entering our lives. "Your mother was an obstacle. I had to get rid of her. Now, it's your turn to complete the ritual." Carla began chanting words in a language I didn't understand, and I felt the ground tremble beneath us. Emma grabbed my hand and whispered, "We have to do something." I noticed a large candle burning on the table. Without thinking, I grabbed it and threw it onto the symbols drawn on the floor. The basement caught fire, and Carla began screaming in a horrifying voice. She tried to escape, but the symbols started to glow strangely, as if pulling her into the ground. Emma and I ran out of the basement, and when the firefighters arrived, they found no trace of the basement or Carla. In the quiet city of Denver, Colorado, where life moves in a monotonous rhythm, Mark lives with his wife, Lynn, and their 2 daughters, Amy and Sarah. Mark works as an international security consultant, a job that requires him to travel frequently to different countries to conduct security analyses and provide advice to governments and major corporations. With each trip, he leaves his family behind in their sprawling home in a remote suburb. Lynn, his wife, is a woman in her early 40s who suffers from antisocial personality disorder, a psychological condition that leaves her devoid of human emotions, like empathy or remorse. She finds pleasure in tormenting and emotionally breaking children. When left alone with the two girls, her personality transforms completely, becoming more violent and cruel. While she appears to be the perfect wife and mother when Mark is home, her true nature emerges in his absence, plunging their household into psychological darkness. Unaware of his wife's condition, Mark is consumed by his work abroad. As he travels, Lynn's darker side intensifies. Amy and Sarah live in constant fear, unable to escape their mother's grasp. The psychological and physical torment escalates as Lynn creates situations designed to render the girls helpless, deepening their feelings of powerlessness. One day, Lynn decided to punish Amy and Sarah for a minor mistake. She locked them in a dark room with no source of light. Sitting in the pitch black, the girls listened to Lynn whisper chilling words about how unfair life was and how worthless they were. She watched them from a distance, savoring their intense fear and anxiety, while smiling silently. Whenever the girls tried to escape or call for help, Lynn would respond with a cold laugh, saying, "No one can hear you here. You're just a burden." On another occasion, Lynn subjected the girls to a bizarre psychological test. She summoned Amy and Sarah to the kitchen and asked them to sit at the table. She locked the door behind her and placed a glass of water in front of each girl. Then she gave them different instructions. "Amy, drink the water quickly," and to Sarah she said, "You must drink slowly. If you rush, you will be punished." The girls tried to follow the instructions, but every time Lynn noticed one deviating slightly, she screamed at them, "You're a failure. You'll never succeed at anything." The mounting pressure made every move feel like a step toward unpredictable punishment. In Mark's absence, Lynn tightened her grip on the household, devising even crueler plans to torment the girls. The house was engulfed in a haunting silence, interrupted only by muffled cries as Amy and Sarah endured their mother's torment. When Mark returned home, Lynn's demeanor shifted. She became calmer, but the trauma the girls endured made everything seem like a surreal illusion. It grew harder for them to distinguish between reality and the nightmare they lived. Over time, Amy and Sarah began exhibiting strange behaviors. At school, they became withdrawn, avoiding interaction with other children, always appearing anxious and fearful. Despite Mark's attempts to connect with them, they distanced themselves whenever he tried to engage more deeply. One day, while Mark was away on another trip, the neighbor noticed Amy sitting on the porch, staring blankly into space. Concerned, the neighbor approached her, only to find the girl muttering strange phrases like, "Mom said, I'm a burden, and I can't escape." Alarmed, the neighbor called the police, triggering an unexpected chain of events. When Mark returned home, he found himself facing the harsh truth he had refused to see for so long. The police had arrived to investigate after the neighbor's report, and the girls began speaking in broken sentences about their suffering in his absence. As Lynn tried to mask the truth, the haunted expressions in the girl's eyes revealed everything. She could no longer hide her dark tendencies. Mark discovered not only that his wife had a severe psychological disorder, but also that she had taken pleasure in emotionally and physically tormenting their daughters. The realization shattered him. He realized that his home, once a place of love and comfort, had become a prison of pain and despair. As the police escorted Lynn away, bewildered and defensive, Amy and Sarah began to feel the first faint glimmers of freedom from the shadows that had dominated their lives. It was the start of a new chapter, one filled with hope, but also marked by the lingering scars of their traumatic experiences. Mark, consumed by guilt and betrayal, vowed to dedicate himself to rebuilding what was left of his family. Yet, he knew the road ahead would be long and fraught with challenges. As Amy and Sarah slowly began to heal, Mark sought ways to help them overcome the deep wounds left by their mother's actions. In the end, the lasting truth for Amy and Sarah was that some doors could never be fully closed. The pain inflicted by one person could leave an enduring presence, a shadow that might never completely fade, no matter how much time passed. In the emergency room of a small hospital in the village of Winchester, nestled amidst the tranquil hills of Vermont, Nurse Claire sat at her desk reviewing reports. The night was calm, but it always carried the possibility of the unexpected. Suddenly, the door swung open, and a police officer walked in, carrying a young boy, no older than 8. His face was bruised, and his eyes were filled with terror. "We found him in an abandoned cabin in the woods," the officer said, trying to soothe the child. "He claims his stepmother is trying to hurt him." Claire knelt beside the boy and offered a warm smile. "Hello there, sweetheart. What's your name?" The boy whispered in a trembling voice. "My name is Timothy, but my mom used to call me Timmy." Claire's smile deepened in reassurance as she asked, "Where is your mother now?" Timmy lowered his head, his voice barely audible. "Mom died last year, but she talked to me last night. She told me to run before Louisa got me." "Louisa? Who's Louisa?" Claire asked, her tone gentle but concerned. Timmy slowly lifted his gaze, his eyes brimming with tears and dread. "My stepmother. She's not human. Mom said she's going to take me, just like she took her." A tense silence filled the room, broken only by the sound of Timmy's frightened breathing. Claire maintained her composure and gently probed, "How did you talk to your mom?" "Was it in a dream?" Timmy shook his head vehemently. "No, it wasn't a dream. I was hiding in the cabin, and this strange light appeared. Then I heard her voice. She told me Louisa isn't human and that I had to run, but she couldn't stay for long." Claire exchanged a quick glance with the officer. The story was bizarre, but the raw fear in the boy's eyes was undeniable. "Where's your dad, Timmy?" Claire asked softly. "I don't know. He's always away. He leaves me and Louisa alone in the big house," Timmy replied. A sudden gust of wind howled against the hospital window, as if nature itself joined in the unease. Timmy shut his eyes tightly and began shaking his head, trying to block out a memory. She comes every night. She stands at my bedroom door. I hear her footsteps, but she never enters. Until that night. Mom said she took her because she broke the rules, and I'm next." "What rules?" Claire asked, keeping her voice steady while a chill crept up her spine. "She told me never to go near the basement. It's full of darkness. She said that's where the curse began." Timmy's words were cryptic, yet they planted a seed of fear in Claire's heart. Determined to investigate, she decided to wait until Timmy was calmer. "All right, Timmy. You're safe here at the hospital. Louisa can't hurt you anymore," she reassured him, though unease gnawed at her. But before she could continue, the hospital's power suddenly went out, plunging the room into darkness. Timmy screamed, pointing to the corner of the room. "She's here. Louisa is here." Claire froze, her breath catching. The darkness was oppressive, broken only by the faint flicker of emergency lights. She followed Timmy's gaze but saw nothing. "Timmy, it's okay. I'm here with you. You're safe," she said, keeping her voice calm despite the growing tension. But the air grew colder, as if winter itself had invaded the room. Suddenly, the door creaked open slowly, its sound echoing ominously. Claire hesitated but grabbed a flashlight, taking a tentative step toward the door. Timmy clung to her hand. "Don't go," he cried. "She's trying to lure you away to take me." Claire knelt beside him again. "Timmy, I'll just check what's outside. I'll be right back, I promise." But as she stood, Timmy gripped her arm tightly, whispering, "If you go, you won't come back." Before Claire could respond, heavy footsteps echoed down the hallway, drawing closer. The sound was deliberate, like someone wearing old heavy boots. Timmy curled into the corner, whispering to himself, "It's Louisa. She found me." Claire's heart pounded, but she steeled herself, directing the flashlight beam down the hallway. A tall woman appeared, wearing an antiquated dress that seemed to belong to another era. Her gray, disheveled hair framed eyes, devoid of life, pure black and unblinking. "Timmy," the woman called in a deep, chilling voice. "I told you never to leave the house. You know the rules." She moved toward the room, and Claire instinctively stepped in front of Timmy, shielding him. "Stay back," Claire shouted, her voice firm, despite her fear. The woman stopped, her gaze locking onto Claire. Then she smiled, a twisted, inhuman grin. "This isn't your place. Don't meddle in what you don't understand, or you'll regret it." Before Claire could respond, the lights flickered back on, and the woman vanished, as if she had never been there. Timmy sobbed uncontrollably as Claire held him close, whispering words of comfort. But she knew this night was far from over. Later, as she moved to secure the area, an ancient, shadowy door appeared at the far end of the hospital, a door that no one had ever noticed before. Inside lay the ultimate secret, a curse that promised to spare no one who dared uncover it. If you are here for the first time, don't forget to subscribe to our channel and turn on the notification bell to stay updated with our upcoming scary stories. We need your support. Please share these stories with your friends and family. In rural America, where the sunset colors the sky a bloody hue, Margaret sits in her old house, part of it collapsed due to time, on the brink of 70. Her eyes are filled with memories, and in her heart, there is an empty space that time cannot fill. She keeps remembering, as if the days that passed were today, replaying in her mind like a never-ending tape. Her childhood was hell, but she learned to live with the pain. Her father was a kind man, but his heart was weak. His first wife left him, and then died in a horrific accident. Then came his second marriage, and Ellen, the stepmother, who was unlike any woman. Ellen wasn't just harsh, she was mysterious. Her gaze was intense, with sharp eyes that gleamed under the moonlight. No one in the family knew where she came from, or why she seemed to have no heart. It wasn't just mistreatment. Ellen made her feel it every moment. Her eyes followed her wherever she went, and her voice haunted her in the dark. The beatings were brutal, but the worst part was the deprivation. Margaret always dreamed of going to college, but Ellen completely refused. You're no better than anyone else in this house. There's no place for you in education, she would always say. In those moments, Margaret felt as if her soul was being crushed, but her body remained alive. One night, when Margaret was 15, something strange happened. In the middle of the night, she woke up to whispers around her bed. Ellen stood in the darkness, her face distorted in the dim light, her eyes gleaming like dead ones. "You will never leave here. You will always be mine," she whispered in her ear. Margaret couldn't move. She was in shock. Was it a dream? Or was it part of something too vast for her to understand? That night, she decided that escape was impossible, and that the shadows that followed her weren't just a figment of her imagination. There were hidden forces in this house, things that couldn't be explained. As the years passed, Margaret moved to a new life, but the shadows never disappeared. In her 70s, every time she remembered her childhood, she felt the same terror. Darkness surrounded her, as it did in those old days. Some nights, she would wake to whispers in the corners and a faint light on the horizon. One day, while cleaning an old place in the house, she found an old picture of her stepmother, Ellen. The features in the photo were strangely distorted, as if the face changed every time she looked at it. Her heart trembled, and she felt a strange sense that Ellen was not just a human, but something else, a terrifying being who never wanted to leave her. Now, in her 70s, Margaret cannot forget those days or escape from those terrifying memories. The shadows still follow her, and although Ellen is gone, her memory lives inside her, as if it is an inseparable part of her, one that time will never erase. Was that truly the past? Or were the shadows left by her stepmother part of a mysterious puzzle that she would never understand?